It's almost time. Our program will begin soon. Please take your seats. It's almost time. Our program will begin soon. Please take your seats.
And welcome back to the Code for America Summit. This afternoon, we kick off our track content with remarks from a number of great folks leading the way in digital service delivery. So as part of this hour-long block, we'll start with Sonal Shah, the founding executive director of the Beck Center for Social Impact and Innovation at Georgetown University. Welcome, Sonal.
Hi, everyone. Okay, are we on the after lunch slump or what? I know. If I were sitting in the audience, I would have one big cup of coffee with me. I just wanted to say, first, a huge congratulations to Jen Palka and Corey Zarek and just putting together an incredible summit and having the sessions that we have here. And it's super great to be here to see how much this has grown and how much the team of digital services has grown too. My name is Sonal Shah. I run the Beck Center for Social Impact and Innovation at Georgetown University, and we're a center that's based in the provost office of Georgetown, and the goal is to actually work across different disciplines across the university. So we get to work with the business school, the computer science program, the law school, so we really think about how to be interdisciplinary and how do we provide classes and training across the university. And as just a quick background on myself, I ran the transition team for President Obama. I ran the transition board on technology and innovation. So as we were setting up all of the various initiatives within the government, we were in the early stages of trying to figure out how to even think about digital in 2008. And what a long way that we have come. So at Georgetown, we're sort of a scrappy team within the provost office. And our job is to think about investing in projects and people who are reimagining how we better serve people across communities, and really thinking about how to be more equitable, how to reach more people, and how do we just do it better in a more systemic way. We're focused on scaling that impact, and we really think about the methodology of scale. If something's working in one place, how do we think about scaling it? If something's working in 10 places, what can we learn? And what are the options for scale? What are the financing models for scale? And we look at two specific areas of work, financing models and data and digital. So how do we do this? We identify initiatives. We provide support. And that support can mean research, identifying researchers who can provide guidance on what can be done. It can mean analysts, people that can go in and work in on projects with people. And we also provide financial support. So if there is capital that is needed, what kind of capital? We can aggregate from other funders. We can also use some of our own money to do that. And through all of these initiatives and projects, we look at how do we find models for scale. Every project we do, we're constantly thinking about what is scalable, what is not scalable, and how do we get to scale. And that's sort of our job. Our data and digital teams, we've got a fairly large portfolio. So in data, we first started with convening chief data officers across the federal government. And through that, we created a playbook for chief data officers, helping them think through what their roles, how their roles are evolving, and what kind of technologies and tools can they use more effectively in their jobs. We now have a fellow working with us, Natalie Heavens-Harris, who is running 2 workshops here, who is working on data sharing. How do you look at data sharing across different communities? And what are the ways to collect data? What does data portability look like? She's working on that. We have another fellow, Denise Ross, who is looking at data sharing, creating a chief data officer network across states. And how can you share data amongst agencies across states, but also within the state? And what needs to happen in order for that work to take place? She's also leading a second project on Census 2020, and really thinking about if there is an undercount, how do we help states, cities, counties really think about how to collect data more effectively on who's in their communities. Third, we have Corey Zarek. Many of you probably haven't seen her. You saw her for a minute here, but she's probably running around trying to chase down the rest of the speakers. But she's leading a big effort that we are doing in partnership with the Rockefeller Foundation called the Digital Services Collaborative. And this is an effort to help government digital service delivery teams accelerate and do their work more effectively. What kind of support can we provide? What kind of aggregation of research can we give? What kind of other resources are needed in order to help government digital service delivery do its job better? And we're not telling anybody how to do it better. What we want to do is collect the information from delivery teams themselves. What's working? What do they need? What kind of support do they need? And how do we effectively think about providing support in a way that helps them achieve their jobs better? So we do 3 types of things. We're cultivating a group of digital service delivery teams. We want to create tangible resources that are useful. We'd like to hear from all of you what types of tangible resources. Is that anything from case studies? Is it playbooks? Is it people? Is it research? Is it data sharing agreements? What is it that will make your job easier to do? What are the types of things you need? And how do we help build an effective model for you all to do your jobs more easily, which I know is not easy within government, having run some of this myself. It is a battle on a constant basis. We're early. We just started this work. As Corey is finishing up the Code for America Summit, she's going to join in full time. And what we've done to date is we have interviewed over 100 folks in government that are working in different aspects of digital service delivery teams to understand what the challenges are that they're facing. And we've started to collect that information, and two things that we're consistently hearing from everybody is one, they would like to learn from each other. What are the things that are working in different states and different cities and different counties? What could they do differently? And they're looking for tangible resources. So everything from templates to checklists to playbooks to case studies to budget models. And so what we hope to do, and what we hope you will do with us, is really tell us, how can we be helpful to you? How can we more effectively learn from what you're doing, and how can we help transfer that information to other places? So what I hope you'll do as you leave here, and what we can do from the outside, and I know all of you are like, what can people on the outside do? What universities can do is we can convene a group of people. We can be neutral. We're not interested in pitching you for money. We're not interested in pitching you for particular products. What we really care about is helping you accelerate your ability to do what you're doing. So what I hope you can see us as a university is a way we can help you, and I hope you'll email us. And I'm going to give you my email, but I'm going to forward it on to another email. But do email us and let us know how we can be helpful. What can we do to help you? My email is Sonal, S-O-N-A-L, .shah, S-H-A-H, @georgetown.edu. If you can email us and let us know how we can be helpful, what are the things you need, what are the supports that you wish you had known before you came in, what do you need to know to do your job more effectively, what else do you need to learn from other places, let us know that, because our job for this digital service network is really to help you do your work so you can affect more people's lives. And so you can help others get access to the services that they actually need. So with that, thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing and hearing from many of you.
Thanks, Sonal. My ears are burning. I'm really excited to kick off that work with Sonal and team at Georgetown. But first, we have a lot to get through here at Summit. If you're following along on the live stream, or if you're here in the room in Oakland, be sure to use the hashtag CFA Summit. And don't forget to evaluate these sessions once we're all done. Next, we'd like to welcome to the stage a group of our colleagues up north. I feel compelled to do a lot of Surrey and, excuse me, take off A. We're welcoming our colleagues from Canada. Please give a warm welcome to Courtney Claussens, John Millens, Aaron Snow, and Mithula Naik.
All right. Hi, I'm Aaron.
John.
Hi, I'm Mithula.
Thank you so much for having us. We are, in fact, the first Canada team. The second Canada team will be here next week to finish the job. There we go. There we go. All right. It is great to be back in the States. I have had an amazing year learning about our neighbors to the north. Canada is an incredibly diverse country where inclusion and immigration are valued and pursued intentionally. It is the most diverse country in the Western world. Its largest city, Toronto, more than half of all residents are foreign-born, which is unsurprising. If America was born in rebellion, Canada was born in confederation, in the need for mutual cooperation between the English and the French. And to this day, the government of Canada is committed by culture and by law to bilingualism. It's also a country of incredibly diverse geography. The Atlantic coast, the prairies, the mountains of the west, and the icy north of 60, that is north of the 60th parallel, where government serves communities that for parts of the year are only accessible by plane or ice road. It's a country bigger than the US with 1/10 the population. Canada will turn 152 years old this summer. Its public service I've found to be highly collaborative and always looking to learn from international peers. And like most governments you work for or with, it's grappling with how to meet service expectations in the modern era. So, taking notice, as they did, of the UK's Government Digital Service, of the United States Digital Service, of my alma mater, 18F, and others, 2 years ago, the Government of Canada created the Canadian Digital Service. CDS was tasked quote, to improve how government delivers digital services to the public. No big deal. So like 18F, CDS is a digital consultancy that sits inside government for government. CDS doesn't have any policy authorities. We don't control any public-facing services ourselves. We work in partnerships with the willing. We help departments design and deliver digital-first services, and with each engagement, our real goal is to help cultivate modern practices and capabilities. So it won't surprise you to hear that this is not easy and that we haven't always gotten it right. So what Courtney and John and Mithula and I are going to do today is talk about a few of the broad challenges Canada faces as it adapts to digital first. Dive into one partnership we recently concluded with Veterans Affairs Canada, zoom back out, tell you a little about what else we're up to now, and then talk about a way forward and ask for your help. So here's our head of policy, John.
Thanks, Aaron. So the reality is we've never done it this way in our government. In the early 2000s, when many governments around the world were starting to get their services online, Canada was a world leader, but we fell behind. And we're working to catch up now, and we're really lucky to stand on the shoulders of people who went before us. We know that the hard part about digital government, it's government. Why? It's because we're going against the grain. We're trying to make new practices the norm and not the exception, and that's hard work. So in Canada, we've got many bright spots across our public service. We've got pockets of awesomeness, as we call them. But we've lacked the foundation we need to scale modern delivery. It's kind of like when your contractor tells you to spend your money on the problems you don't see behind the walls. So if you're going to redo your washroom, make sure you fix the old plumbing first. And I'm sure everyone in this audience knows these challenges well. So here are three big ones for us. Number one, we have silos. We tend to move our work through separate teams instead of moving people along with the work. Secondly, we have complex funding processes. It's simply not easy to access small amounts of money to test something out. And we also fund projects instead of funding teams. And thirdly, we have layered governance and policies. We tend to add more approval bodies and rules because we think it will reduce risk and increase our chances of success. And it's this third item that I want to dig into for a moment. Policy is often divorced from implementation. That's somebody else's problem that we'll worry about later. We're heavy on rules, but what we need is more guidance and tools. We're also really, really good at spreading rumors about what you can and cannot do. And while many of our policies were developed in a pre-internet era, we still have legislation that requires paper forms. Changing these rules isn't much quicker than changing legislation. So this is a problem. But there's an opportunity here for us. We can model delivery-informing policy in Canada and be leaders in that space. We can help change how people across government think about doing their work, and perhaps more importantly, who they do that work with. And we want to run right into the challenges until basically there are only enablers to better service delivery. And so one of the ways we approached this at CDS was to embed policy people on each one of our delivery teams. They are our bureaucracy hackers. They work through legislation, they work through regulation, and they work through policy and product development, including for Courtney's team.
So I was the product manager for our work with Veterans Affairs Canada. We're just going to call them VAC going forward. And you'll see how some of the policy work that John referenced came to have an impact on our delivery with VAC. We're going to walk you through three of the problem areas and how we address them. The first is the ability to start with design research. The second, then using that design research to inform our product decisions. And finally, working through breaking down some silos in the org.
So that first problem area, design research, is a really good starting place to talk about how policy can have a positive impact. Talking directly and often to the people we serve is critical. I think everyone in this room knows that. But we can't do this across government if people don't know whether they're allowed to do it or what the process is to follow. And in the Government of Canada, we're not used to researching and building services directly with the public. What we are used to doing is something called public opinion research, or POR for short, ou ROP en français. You know, every government likes a good acronym. Ours just happen to be bilingual. So we have a government-wide policy for POR, which is sort of like the Federal Paperwork Reduction Act down here in the States. POR is usually about collecting large-scale opinions about Government of Canada direction. It's planned annually. Yep, that means once a year. It's centrally managed, so there's line of sight of where government will be seeking broad views from the public. So we know this is not the same as design research. It's not asking people about using a service, what their needs are, building those needs into a service continuously. And it's certainly not planned from 1 week of research to the next. So we would get questions from partners, people who wanted to do it, but it would say things like, how can I do research with the public if I'm not on my annual POR plan? Or it'll take me months to get that approved. No way. So the thing is, because design research is new for our government, it was being confused with POR. And if you're trying to convince a colleague, a manager, a department, hey, a whole government to move away from a long-standing practice, you need the direction to be explicit. You need to make it easy. You need to be able to point to something and say, look here, you can do it. This is official. Sometimes it's a single line in a policy that influences behaviors. In this case, in our case, it wasn't what the policy did say, it's what it didn't say. So we got to work to make the right thing the easy thing. We played our government whisperer role. We took what we heard from being on the ground with departments, and we worked to understand the spirit of the policy. What were they trying to achieve as an outcome? And how could we meet that outcome while still enabling delivery? And we managed to change the policy in a matter of months. And in Canada, I don't know about elsewhere, this is absolutely unheard of, to do something like this in months. And it led to 3 great outcomes. Number 1, we were able to do the research. This is good. Not bad. Secondly, our partner was able to do the research, who had never done it before. Even better. But thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, is that all of government was now able to do design research backed by policy instead of being hindered by it. So let's unpack a bit of that research. And who better to speak to that than Matula, who led the research with veterans?
Thanks, John. There's an estimated 650,000 veterans in Canada. However, fewer than 30% are even aware of what VAC is. And fewer than 20% are currently being served by VAC. This was a problem statement that stood out for us, and we were keen on helping VAC in their journey towards modern service delivery. So we looked at the data, and we spent a good amount of time with VAC staff, and we identified that the benefits process was confusing and highly complex. And this meant that there were 2 key problems. First, that veterans had a low familiarity of the benefits available. And secondly, that the benefits process was highly confusing. And so these problems told us that we needed to look at the data and spend a good amount of time with VAC staff and identified there are 2 key, To address this, we needed to talk to veterans and understand from their points of view why these problems were happening. So we conducted interviews with veterans, with still-serving military members and their families, not just stakeholders or staff who do their best to represent the interests of the user, but who aren't necessarily the users themselves. Veterans like Susie here. Susie served in NATO and was former aide-de-camp to Canada's Governor General. And Kalojiro, mathematician, a soldier, and veteran, who also welcomed us into his home to tell us more about his story. And every member of our product team, regardless if you're a product manager or a designer, attended an interview and listened to a real veteran story. Here's what we learned: that the information presented to veterans was in bureaucratic government language, often right from policy. That there was a massive information overload and a lack of transparency, and an inconsistency in how benefits were communicated across different channels. We then used these findings to create a product in simple, plain language that helps veterans browse and find benefits that match their needs. Our product and its approach gives veterans the confidence to find their next steps. we manage this by bringing people from across the department, from communications to frontline staff, to collaborate on creating new language. And this language comes straight from veterans. We also ensured that the content was at an 8th grade reading level, compared to the university level that most policy is. And when it comes to developing services, more often than not, services are designed in English and then translated to French. This isn't ideal because something is inevitably lost in translation. Instead, we carried our designs and our prototypes across the country, and we conducted usability tests in both official languages. And we tested it with over 100 French and English-speaking veterans and frontline staff. And this, testing in both official languages, is a new way of doing things, and we're really excited about the results. Now, Courtney will talk about how we worked with VAC to deliver this for veterans.
Thanks, Mitula. So the data and the research showed us what we needed to do to build the product, but we had to figure out how to deliver it with an organization where comms doesn't necessarily talk to designers who aren't used to working with developers and so on. We had some silos to break down. We identified roles on a multidisciplinary team and had folks from both the CDS teams and the VAC team come to work together in the same spaces. We started this a little late into our partnership, but it ended up being really critical for our work. We were able to coach and mentor the VAC teams so that they could continue the work when we're gone, because we always leave. It was about team support and sustainability, lots of sharing patterns, practices, habits. There's also some logistical pieces. We have to unblock our partners in certain ways, like helping them get access to commonplace tools like Google, GitHub, Trello, Slack, the things that we take for granted but we all know are really critical to the success of our work. And getting them unblocked for some folks on one team is a step in the direction of getting them unblocked for the entire department, and then, hopefully, maybe the rest of government. Because we want to help the rest of the department and the rest of government. Our work is really only our best work when it's scalable. So to help VAC scale up, we identified the new roles that don't really yet exist in government and helped VAC hire for them, helping to supply job descriptions, guidance on government classifications, recruitment strategies. So our partnership with VAC has come to a close now, but they still have a multidisciplinary team that's working on the product. We're excited to see more of these teams emerge and maybe start to see some of these silos break down a bit further. Okay, we learned a lot, helped set up a team for VAC, and built a live product. We measured throughout, and now VAC has all the data they need to understand how the product is working and use it to help guide their future iterations. It's good for veterans. It's also good for VAC. It's good for the rest of government. We went through a lot of different challenges and roadblocks to try and set an example for others to start to follow so that we, as a government, only start to make new mistakes. Because now, I'm working on a new product helping all Canadians access their disability benefits, and I'd really not like to address the same challenges over again.
Thanks. And Courtney is not the only one. None of us, no one in government, no one here today, wants to keep solving the same problems, right? So CDS is almost 2 years old. The team has grown very fast. Knock wood, there will be 85 of us by the end of the summer. And while Courtney and Mithula and their team were working with Veterans Affairs Canada, other CDS teams were partnering with other departments to do things like help make it easier and faster for immigrants to reschedule citizenship exams, to create and ship an API for accessing home energy usage data, building a platform for grants, and some other projects you can check out on the website. None of it's been perfect. In every engagement, we have run into challenges, learned hard lessons, made some headway. It has been 2 years of doing our best to demonstrate the art of the possible, of campground rules, trying to leave things better than we found them, of building support for a different kind of team and for a different way of working, creating conditions for success, not just for us, but for everyone in government, to lay a strong enough foundation for what's next. So, what's next? Here's some of the things that CDS is up to going into our third year. We're working with departments on a variety of projects, including helping low-income Canadians file their tax returns and access the refunds that they're owed, helping people apply for and obtain disability benefits. In addition to those partnership projects, we're also working on things like creating additional reusable components and resources for departments. We're launching an in-house accelerator this spring to help important projects both with funding off-cycle and with easier access to vendors that do human-centered design and agile development, like the vendors that show up at places like Code for America Summit. And we're piloting Civic Leave and other programs to work at rotating more great product people into government service. These are all important, and they're all shots across the bow, but there's a bigger picture too. What can we do? Can we do more to set up government to succeed across the board in a digital world? Well, last year, the Canadian government brought together a committee of some of Canada's digital industry leaders and put this question to them. They said, how would our lives be improved a decade from now if digital innovation was better integrated into our lives, businesses, and government? And they had lots of excellent recommendations. There was one that really called out to us at CDS. They said we should digitize all our public-facing services end-to-end by 2025. No big deal. Well, at CDS, we love a good challenge, and this is why CDS exists, and the industry leaders gave it something it hadn't had before, a deadline. And we thought, well, that deadline is ambitious, but not totally outlandish. So what would it take for the government of Canada to get it done? Well, a couple weeks ago, we posted our initial thoughts, our skeleton of a roadmap for getting it done. None of this will sound revolutionary to anyone who's in this room. But here's the top-level outline of what we said a first year should look like. First, prioritize and empower and measure digital service development. Pick the services worth digitizing, because you're not going to digitize every single one of them. Empower small multidisciplinary teams to tackle each of them. Set outcome criteria, collect baseline metrics if you can, and assess regularly, and do that in the open. That's number one. Second, to help those service delivery teams do all of that, commit to providing them with well-designed common services and components and resources that meet their development needs. And those themselves should be delivered by dedicated product teams that are accountable to the service delivery teams. Third, remove obstacles to digital service delivery. And if we had a magic wand, okay. In Canada, this means things like making cloud services and other modern tools easier to obtain and use. It means better aligning HR policy to support digital teams. It means investing in the adoption across the board of continuous delivery practices, and more that you can read about there. And then fourth and finally, measure what's working before planning what's next. Because the one thing we do know is that we won't know what the second year should look like until we get started with the first year. So that's what we think a start would look like. And in the Canadian spirit, we want to know what you think. We value your input. If you're facing similar challenges, we'd also love to hear about whether there are ways we might be able to help you as well. So with that, I will say merci, bon après-midi. Thank you, and good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Team Canada. So we're going kind of around the hemisphere this afternoon in our digital delivery track. We heard a bit from Sonal on how teams are supporting government digital service work from the outside of government, heard from Team Canada, and now we're going to take it south. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Daniel Abadi, the Undersecretary of Digital for the government of Argentina.
Thank you. Hi all. So my name is Daniel. I've been working in government for the last 11 years. Before doing this job, I was part of the Buenos Aires city government as a head of technology. And we built a huge interest platform, and I've been in this role for the last 3.5 years. I'm from Argentina. Anyone knows Argentina? Besides Messi, Ginobili, some basketball, some wine. So we are a country far, far away, like 16 hours flight. We are 44 million people. 32% of those citizens live in poverty. We got a federal government, 24 states, 2,100 local governments. It's similar to the US, where us from the federal level, we got our rules, but the states got their independence and the local governments got their independence. And we got a public and education system that is free for citizens. And it's run from state side or local side. And going from the city to the national level, at the first we thought it was going to be easy. It didn't. It was so hard. It was not taking what we have done in the city when we got unlimited resources and just plugged in a national law. And what we learned out there, and I'm going to talk about this here, it's about time. Because when you work in government, you think that the limited resource you got is political power, it's money, it's human resources. But what you're missing and what you're running out of is time. And that time and understanding that makes you shape a different strategy on how you should do things. Because 2 days ago, for me, it was like 10th of December of 2015, taking the office. And we got elections in October of this year. So when we took the office, we thought our enemy was fighting against fragmentation, right? 3.5 years ago, we got more than 700 websites, no digital strategy, a lot of vendors, a lot of government egos trying to do this shiny, beautiful thing just to get me in the media because, let's do an app, it's going to be easy. And so that was the strategy. I always tell the same thing. We compare free websites. It was like a how to do things in government guide. And if you see one service, both free services were explained in different ways and wrong. No one was right. So we thought that was our fight to take. But when you work in government, and you're going to feel this with me, is that this is the real fight in government. And I'm going to talk about products. But this is about, missing time. Someone is building the same thing you are building inside your organization all the time. And you're going to get to decide if you're going to build better, or you're going to build fast, if you're going to deliver, or you're going to get mixed in what it happened to us, to me, that we get mixed in our egos, so we took what we did in the city of Buenos Aires and we rebuilt it from scratch. So we lose time, and we launch late into the almost second year of our term, which is, in some part, hard to do that. So when we did that, we started building a website. It's called argentina.gov.ar, where we basically integrate 700 websites on one platform. We centralize technology and we decentralize content. So we work with different government areas, teaching them how to create content inside the internet and killing government egos. No one got their website anymore, and you see this in examples like GovUK or Peru or Mexico, and trying to integrate things. We built on our Drupal distro that we built in the city of Buenos Aires, so we took the open source technology and we implemented, and now we are serving like 7 million users every month. And after getting that platform in place, we started creating content relevant for the users. Because when government doesn't do the job as it should, you lose being the reference in the internet. Most of our citizens go into any blog post, in any user experience to learn how to do things with governments. I know it happens in Argentina. I know it should happen in the US, in the UK. It's happening in the UK. It's someone trying to help citizens how to do things with the government. So we start creating relevant content for citizens. For example, our Secretary of Health, because it was the national level, didn't speak to citizens, used to speak to other states or basically to the health system, but not to the end user. So we start creating different websites, how to create, blood donation, HIV, first aid, and different content that helps citizens to go through. And I could stop here and say that we create a website and we basically got all the administration now in our platform using our services, and we got more than 25,000 page creating in 3 years with new content written for the users. But for us, doing a website and centralizing was part of the first experience in the city. And when we get to the national level, we wanted more because internet had changed so much in the last 11 years that we weren't, wanting to stay with our website. So thinking of the time we got left, we went through this concept. There is Internet of Me. It's got to be on how government needs to learn on how internet has grown and gone forward and how this is happening. I took this picture 2 weeks ago in New York City. So basically, government thinks that all of us should be seeing the painting and us want to get a selfie with the painting. So for us working in government, understanding that our ego is not important and we should build what citizens are looking for is game-changing because we should build websites. So our next stage is customizing my government experience. So we create something called My Argentina. My Argentina is a citizen dashboard where citizens can log in and access to their centralized information. And we're going to go forward now seeing some products. First of all, we built a single sign-on based on OpenID Connect, which is an open source, a kind of one ID to rule them all. Of course, we're competing with all other IDs inside the same administration because they cooperate. We built an API gateway similar on what Estonia has done to connect everything government to our dashboard. Also, we are competing with another API inside the administration, but we're getting integrated. And we integrated to our national ID record using a biometrical validation through our phone to validate identity. And this got to be because you got to give your discussion with the lawyers about who's accessing to information. And there was no other way to access and give health records if we cannot validate users, that the user is the user. So this year, we launched this. We took our driving license, and in 60 days, we make it legal in the phone. How? By basically taking the office that runs national driving licenses and telling them we're going to do it from November till January. We just work on the technology. We create 2 APIs, 2 mobile apps. One was our mobile app for My Argentina, new version, and one app for the traffic inspectors. At the end of the day, we just create a tiny little step of regulation that said that the physical has the same value that the digital version. And we impact into 19 million users. What gave us this? Power in the site administration to do more things. So in some weeks now, we are launching all the freight documentation for the logistics system. Truck drivers in Argentina, they move with a lot of papers in trucks, and if they lose them, they need to do it again with government. So what we're doing is we bring in all those documentations inside the phone. We're launching vaccines, so you can, and that's the first step for medical records. We're sending emails saying happy birthday. You need to get your flu vaccine because you are 65 years old. We send the reminders, that your driving license is expiring. And this is all trying to reduce the friction we got with government about the anxiety that, I need to do something again because government can be cool, but we're not cool. People, they don't come to us because, they want to see a movie or pick some food or get a date. And on the other side of the services, then we start working on this concept of empathy, trying to think and divide services, asking if it hurts to the citizen or not. Because this is something that I have learned working in the federal level about, technology could be cold and far away and so easy that let's do an app. But working and building empathy on being a public servant and understanding that our role is to, make things more easy is huge. And a great example for that is the disability certificate. In Argentina, this certificate is printed in paper, which is, it's not common paper. It's the paper where you print the money, the notes. So it got legal status, and if you lose it, you need to go through all the process again, including the medical board. So that, and getting a disability certificate is a painful moment for anyone, even it's for you, for your family, for your kids. So it's not a happy moment. So our role is to reduce that friction so that we can help you go through that shitty moment easier, no better. And through empathy, then we start working with maternal and infant mortality in Argentina. These are some numbers. 33% of the women doesn't get at least 5 controls during pregnancy, and 6.9, they got their first contact with the public system of health at the moment of childbirth. We are a developing country, 32% of poverty. So we can increase, if we increase those controls, we can reduce the 60% of those risks, So we went to the Secretary of Health 3 years ago, and they got the crazy idea of sending some emails to women. In a huge, we got the emails. It's like, font type 70 Comic Sans, just screaming people saying why you didn't go to your control. So our UX team get inside. We went during 6 months, seeing different first attention centers in Argentina, trying to understand how women interact. 70% of our mobile phones are prepaid, so SMS was not an option, but everyone used Facebook. And government not being cool, the barrier of getting an app, because just let's build an app, or getting into a channel like Facebook Messenger, it paid more off, at the end, Facebook Messenger, because it was easier not to engage people on downloading an app. So we built a virtual assistant for pregnancy and early childhood. This assistant accompanies women during pregnancy and early childhood. It sends you personalized information and reminds you of going to the prenatal checkups. Basically, it sends you a message the day before, during the day, and the day after, trying to engage on how you're doing. We send information to women because most of them, they got no idea what's going to go through the controls. And we learned from the Mexican government that they got a similar project doing the same things, that they used to ask women how do they feel. So we started asking them, how do you feel today? And we start record that and trying to see if they were good, bad. But we didn't want to do this just, we did a virtual assistant and just throw it to the internet. We decided to do a health impact assessment. So we took a single town in Argentina where the infant mortality is 12.6. Infant mortality in the US, it's 5.7. Okay? So 12.6 is the double of what's happening in the US. And we work using digital tutors, going to the health centers, teaching women how to enroll using the messenger. And the output of that is now we got 1 out of 3 women using the bot. We're expanding nationwide. Along with the Secretary of Health, we are publishing a scientific article where we have measured that the women using the tool have more controls than the women that don't, that they arrive early to the health system before the week 13. So with this tool measure, we won a Webby 2 weeks ago. For those who don't know, Webby is like the most important. Thank you. We won a Webby because this is a policy, a health policy outside the health system. Usually, the health system is sitting into hospital waiting for citizens to come to the hospitals. It's a personalized tool. It's easy to scale and to replicate in any country. And it's changed on what users need, on creating content all the time on what users are asking for. But this is just ego, and it's not good. The real thing, and as I like to say, the real MVP, are those. When we asked them during the week 39 or 40 if your child was born, some of them sent us pictures. Tell me if you don't like working in government. So, for closing, I got like 2 minutes. The best advice I can give you after 3 years working in government at this level, the best advice I can give you when you think everything is down, you're not comfortable with what you're doing, you're out of focus of the strategy, and everything is that doing beats everything. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel, and everyone. That was a great chunk of content on digital delivery. We heard what's happening up north in Canada, what we've learned down in Argentina, and we'll come back to a deeper dive on what's happening here in the United States tomorrow morning with U.S. Digital Service Administrator Matt Cutts giving us a Digital Service State of the Union. So we're wrapped up for this segment and about to head out into a break, but I'd like to ask you all here in the room to please take a minute and review this session using your app or on the website to make sure we get some feedback on how it's going for you. After this, we'll come back to this room and we'll hear another round of deep dive keynotes on the civic innovation track. Thank you and see you soon.